I can't answer for conservatives because I'm not one on why they hate the poor. Although I don't think they do. Maybe some, but I'm not going to say a whole group of people hate the poor. I think very few people hate the poor. I think only sociopaths uh, get pleasure from the misery of others. And I think it's very arrogant to believe that anyone who is against the means of carrying out a certain things is against has different motives than me. Just because someone might be against your way of doing things doesn't mean that they're against doing things, right? I mean, someone could say I'm against public education because I think it makes education more expensive, and I think education would be cheaper and more affordable for everyone if we privatized it and we'd have better quality because we allow competition. Um, Now, just because one is against government-run education doesn't mean one doesn't want people to be educated and only wants people to be ignorant. It just means that they think it should be done a different way. Um, anyway, so that's it. I think it's to misunderstand uh, if you think that, oh, because someone is against the welfare state, therefore someone is against poor people. I would actually disagree. I think that the welfare state has harmed poor people much more than it harms much more than it has done good. The famous aphorism, as we all know, is teach a man a fish and he'll feed a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man a fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. The welfare state doesn't teach people how to become self-reliant. It simply gives them food uh, and money, uh, and much like a drug dealer teaches them to become dependent. And dependency is the best way to become poor. The way to not become poor and get out of poverty is to become self-reliant. And safety nets don't do that. If you believe that the government will help you if you fall, you're more likely to fall. Uh, just to bring a thought experiment, um, for instance, if let's say there's two families and someone says to one of their children, "You graduated school, um, I want you to work for a living. In 3 months, 6 months, whatever, if you don't find a job, I'm kicking you out of the house, and you're going to have to fend for yourself." And another parent says, "I really think you should work. You're at the age, it's time. You're old enough. You should do it not to burden us, but to for your own self and become dependent. By the way, I want you to know that we always love you. So if for some reason, if you can't for the job, don't worry. We're always here to support you." All else being equal, who do you think is going to get the job first? If one knows that the consequences of failing are not as bad, they're more apt to fail than if they know, uh-oh, if I starve, I'm going to do whatever I can. You ever play the trust game? If you believe that your friend will catch you, you're more apt to fall. But if you don't, that survival instinct will kick in. This is known as in psychology as risk compensation. That the greater the level of risk involved, the less cautious someone is going to be. And when there's more risk, you're going to be more precautious. When there's less risk, you're going to be less precautious. Uh, this idea is not particularly a new idea, and there have been many experiments to prove this idea. One of the most famous being the Munich taxicab experiment, where they had two different taxi ex- group taxicab groups. They had thousands of taxis with two different experimental groups. One was had an anti uh, brake system where if your car would skid over or you're driving too fast and it was wet, there was an anti brake system that would allow your car to stop suddenly. And there was another one without this safety net, if you will. Well, what they discovered was that the ones that had this safety net, the drivers were driving faster, they were less cautious, they were making sharper turns, they were tailgating more than the ones, and they got into more accidents more than the ones that did not have this anti brake system. Why? If I know someone is going to help me fall, I'm going to be less cautious. If you believe that someone is going to take care of you, you're less apt to take care of yourself. I think that is just common sense. Um, and so the welfare state is perpetual poverty. It basically tells people, don't worry, I'll take care of you. And that says to people, well, if you're going to take care of me, why work? Why bust my balls finding a job? I'll rely on government. Um, Freedom from hunger is not freedom. I would say it's slavery. I think the definition of freedom is if you take away any government program, would people still be free? If you need someone to take care of you, you're not free. A child is not freer than their parent, because if their parent died suddenly and the children wouldn't work, they might starve. The parent is the free one. The breadwinner is the free one. So you're not free when government takes care of you. You're a servant of the government. You're dependent on the government. You're a slave to the government. And I think that maybe certain middle class or poor people know that. Maybe they know that the government has made it worse for me. The government has made has created poverty. They have not eliminated it, and they don't want to be poor anymore. And they believe and they understand that while the progressive ideology is very well meaning, it has made it worse off for people. I'll just give one more example: minimum wage. Now, a lot of the propaganda is that anyone who is against minimum wage hates poor people. You just want poor people to make a penny an hour. Well, no. I think the people who are against minimum wage, and I would include myself in this, understand that laws don't solve problems. You can't pass a law and the world and the evils of the world will be gone. You can't pass a law to cure cancer. You can't pass a law to stop people from harming other people necessarily. Laws don't solve the world's problems. Well, there's no job law that says you have to employ a person. There's only a job that says you have to that if you do choose to employ a person, this is the minimum price you must pay them. Minimum wage is an arrogant government view of paternalism. It basically says, I'm not going to let the two people, the employer and the employee, decide for themselves the price that they think is reasonable. Me, government, who knows all, should decide the minimum price. And anyone who is willing to accept a price lower is just doing that because they don't know what's good for them. This is an arrogant view of an arrogant view, and quite frankly demeaning, and there's no way to treat people. It's basically saying you're too stupid, and the only reason you're accepting it is because you don't know better. Um, and not to mention that minimum wage causes unemployment. I think it's common sense that the cheaper something is, the more people will buy it, and the more they can afford to buy it. If someone's productivity level is $5 an hour and the minimum wage is 10, they're out of a job. They're screwed. No one's going to hire them if the productivity level is below the minimum wage. All the minimum wage is a barrier that basically says if you don't meet these standards, you can't work. Instead of saying anyone who's willing to hire you, they can hire you. If minimum wage was $100 an hour, we wouldn't all be rich. All that would happen is that anyone whose productivity level and labor was worth less than $100 an hour would be out of the workforce. Unemployment would skyrocket. Laws don't make things better. And I think a lot of well, I don't. I think at least when it comes to economics, I think conservatives understand at least that part of it. Although I don't. I think I have issues with it because I do think they still believe that laws can solve everything. I think this is a uniquely libertarian point of view that you can't change people's behavior by passing laws. You can only change your own actions. Gandhi said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." He didn't say change the world the way you want to see it. I wish we lived more like Gandhi's way instead of the other way. All right.